Hey, you know how the that we learned that when a Hangout goes live, it doesn't really go live for like 40 seconds for everyone else?
Yes.
So if we started
Can we
at
take a picture of
12,
you?
like we're on time. But if it's 40 seconds late, doesn't it seem like we're late?
Well, it does seem like we're late, except it's really 12:01 our time, so technically we are like 40 seconds late.
Or if they're watching it at 5 p.m. tomorrow, we're like 17 hours early.
Yes, I would wonder which one it is right now. So I'm trying to get it to load up and see if it's actually playing live. Oh, there's a live picture of me taking this selfie of you
Oh, nice.
during this.
I'll send
Yes.
that for you later.
Yes. Oh, I see that there's questions and Rebecca's already answering them from yesterday. That's awesome.
Fancy.
So since it is live already, for the people that are watching it live, they can put questions on the Google Hangout page. I've got that open, and then questions on the chat on the live thing as well. I'll try to catch them.
Awesome. So
Let's see.
today we're doing, we usually do this talk at a conference, like when we're speakers at a conference. We ask if we can speak at like 10 p.m. when most people are just sitting in their hotel rooms, fiddling their thumbs, watching some movie that they don't really want to watch. We figured, what if we do a session at 10 p.m. at a conference? And then we could do this session. And I think people really like that.
Yes, I think they do, except when we go to a really cool place like Savannah at night and there's
Oh,
nightlife. But
we
yes, it
did make
is.
a mistake.
Yeah, it is a favorite thing. Okay, this is a weird thing because I see us live over here on this screen, so I just have to kind of ignore that there are two of you.
Nice. So
Yes.
yeah, so that is a good insight. Never do a 10 p.m. event in Las Vegas because everyone's out.
I
They're
don't even
out.
think we contemplated doing a 10 p.m. event in Las Vegas. I think we were wise enough. We didn't anticipate Savannah, Georgia being a place for a 10 p.m. event where there was the big nightlife.
I'm thinking maybe we wouldn't do one in downtown Auckland at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. I think
I'm
there's
thinking
probably
not. I'm thinking there's things I would like to do. So Dan, you sent me a list, an outline that we normally go through, and there's 6 things on this outline.
well, maybe for the linear people, you should read the 6 things so they know where we're headed, even though they won't have any idea what they mean.
Okay, which I had a moment of panic because I couldn't read my own writing. So, and I get after my own children, like, make sure you write legibly. So we're going to start off with blogging as a business. But at first I thought I wrote blogging is awesome, which is also true. And then
Nice.
I know, I was like, what? What? And then I have rolling the snowball, which that one takes explaining, but once we explain it, it's awesome. And
Yes.
then understanding where the money comes from and the infrastructure of building a business. And then we're going to think about scaling, which is like leverage and outsourcing. And then finally, thinking about the potential of selling your website as well. And again, I'm going to add writing legibly because I struggled here really badly.
So let's start talking about blogging as a business. Now, I think the most important thing to think about here, because a lot of people, on this call, a lot of bloggers, this is a dichotomy. A lot of people just blog for fun, and some people say they blog for money. But that's not really what we're talking about. So blogging as a business, why don't you try to think of some businesses, or maybe not even businesses. Can you think, Rachel, of some things that you love that you actually pay for?
Are you referring to Starbucks coffee or what are you I'm trying to read your mind at midnight here.
Do you like Starbucks coffee?
I do appreciate actually it doesn't even have to be Starbucks even though that's a love of mine. I do appreciate a really good cup of coffee and I am willing to pay for that cup of coffee. And as you and I know from one time going to a coffee shop in Nashville, I can discern between a really good cup of coffee and a really poor overpriced cup of coffee.
Yes, I learned that lesson myself. Although
Yes.
I don't exactly know what a good cup of coffee is yet, because they're all just kind of bitter.
Well, when you said, "Oh, this is bad," I said, "See, you're starting to learn. You have some level of discernment. Like you knew it was bad at that point at $6." So
Now, I don't
yes.
think that you have like a shoe thing, right? You don't have like 400 pairs of shoes, do you?
No, I don't have 400, but I do like shoes. As I'm looking over at all my shoes, yes, I do like
So
shoes.
you actually like shoes and you like Starbucks.
I
Now,
do.
if you're a blogger and you or a small business for that matter, it doesn't really matter. Um, the idea that blogging is a business, that content creation, that being a small business and using content to reach people as a business, think about it the other way around. Because while we think about making money when we think of blogging as a business, think about what Rachel just said about Starbucks, which is a pretty popular coffee chain worldwide. Um, the idea that coffee is something that makes her happy and that she's willing to pay for. This is the art of the business. This is the other side that we're trying to achieve. Because all over the world, there are people who want exactly what you have. There are people whose hobby it is that what you write about. Like, Rachel, when we go to an airport, she might stop at a Starbucks and buy coffee. Not
There's no
because
might. I will stop.
not because Starbucks is a business, but because coffee is something that she loves, and she's willing to trade her hard-earned money for the coffee. So when we're talking about blogging as a business on your side of the fence, how do we find the people who are more than happy to pay for the thing that you do? Because they're everywhere. And the idea that we start blogging to make money is kind of the opposite of starting blogging to serve the people who love us the most. Because the things that we love most in life, aside from family and friends, are usually the things that we buy. Would you say the same?
I would absolutely say the same, and I think that's where the part of where there's that deep brand loyalty comes into play. I know that those are the things that my kids want, like they love Minecraft or something like that, and they have no qualms about telling me, hey mom, can you get me this next thing, because they have that's what they love, so they're willing to trade money in that they've earned around the house to get new things there.
And for our audience, if you're a runner, Nike and Asics and New Balance are all shoes that are available to you as a runner. But on Nike's side of the fence, Asics and New Balance are competitors. On our side of the fence, as runners, they're not competitors. They're other shoes we could buy that maybe our feet fit in well and maybe they don't. Maybe we actually have all the different shoes depending on the type of race, or maybe we get them all just because we want the different colors. So from the other side of the fence, your audience who's willing to pay for the things you do, they don't necessarily even see you as having competitors. They see you as serving one of their needs. So if we're going to start a blog and operate as business, one of the things we have to figure out is who on the planet really wants what we have and who's willing to pay for it. And because they pay for it, they're even bigger fans than if they got it for free. Because we should be in the business of happy. We should be in the business of creating smiles, producing assets, producing products, answering questions, making people happier, smarter, laugh harder. I mean, all of those things are part of the business of blogging, because on the other end are the cheerleaders who are very, very excited about spending the money for what it is that we do.
I think you said that perfectly about, articulating and figuring out what that is and not being afraid to think of your blog as a business. I know sometimes people will wonder about that aspect of it specifically, and I think that when you can make that step to looking at it as a real business, there is this much more potential for creating the products or creating that fan base and the cheerleaders.
Now, there's a lot of other bloggers and a lot of people who will say, will leave a comment like, I think that this kind of stuff should be free. Because some people think if it's on the internet, it should be free for everyone. Like, some people just feel like everything should be free. But in the end, the people who want what you have for free don't become the biggest cheerleaders. Like, look at Apple computers. Those people pay a lot of money for their products, and they wait in line overnight to get them the day they come out. Not because it's a business, but because Apple is in the business of producing things other people love.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, and we touch upon it at the blogging concentrated events, is like you were saying, you kind of cultivate the type of fan base based upon what value you put on what you produce. So if you're producing something and you're just saying it's free, 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 then it's very, very hard at a certain point to say, hey, I've got this ebook that I'm going to sell for you for this price. And they might not be as dedicated as to who you are and your brand. So if there's this mindset and this philosophy of what you're producing is worth a certain amount, like Apple does. They don't go around and, there's no huge Apple sale or anything like that because we all know that people are going to wait outside for it. So what we want you to really believe is that what you're producing is worth, returning a return on investment back.
So let's use your ebook as an example because I think the idea of how your ebook came about is somewhat controversial. And the idea
my
that
ebook?
Yeah, I mean the idea that you write how many posts are in that?
The original Dear Mom Letters ebook has 21 letters in it.
So now, can you imagine taking 21 of your blog posts and putting them into a book format and then offering that for sale on your site for $10? They're just the same exact content that you can get on your book. It's just exactly the same. It's just put into a book form. And then we give you the opportunity to buy that book. Now, nobody buys it against their will, right? Has anybody bought it against their will?
No, not at this point. I've never had someone email me back and say, I was forced to buy your ebook and to go onto PayPal and I had to pay you money. So no, not at all.
So why do you think people are buying your book?
Well, I know exactly why people are buying it. As you and I, Dan, were in a mastermind probably 2.5 years ago, and one of the most common emails that I received was, could you put your letters into an ebook form because I want to give it to somebody else. So we paid attention and we listened, and we took the 21 original letters and packaged them into an ebook, which was really for them, all the letters are on the site, but for them it was something that was convenient and they were right there. And we have never once had one person say back to us, and we've sold thousands, come back and say, wow, I could have just read all of that on the site. Instead of that, it's more, thank you so much for putting this together, and when can I get a hardcover version of this and get it into a book form?
And that really, in the end, is the business. Is it the business of, hey, I wrote a bunch of posts, I'm hearing what you're saying, you want this in a book, I've taken my time and I've put it into a book, and we made it available, and we even charged $10 for it because if we're going to, and this is where we're moving on to rolling the snowball, which is the next segment, if I'm going to build an email list or a database or an audience of people, then it would be a really good list if the only people that were on it were people who'd already spent $10 to get your ebook. I mean, that's a really good list. Those are people who've raised their hand and said, I not only enjoyed reading it online for free, but I'm willing to pay for it to be able to read it on my Kindle or read it on my computer.
I totally agree, and I really appreciated your segue to rolling the snowball. So, are you ready to go to rolling the snowball?
Yeah, I think building the list is part of that.
Okay, so rolling the snowball. I don't know. Does New Zealand get snow? Look I'm not really up. I'm not on that weather thing, and I'm a weather person. So we usually
I think Mount Cook does get snow.
Yes, well, I would say yes. I recognize that, but I'm wondering if they, like where I live here in Minneapolis, we sometimes could get 20 inches of snow at one time, and it's quite the mess to deal with it. So rolling the snowball, the analogy there is a lot of times bloggers and business owners will do all sorts of activities that don't really work together to build a snowball. So once you, like with snow, you just keep building it and getting it bigger and bigger. But if you have a yard full of different snowballs or little molehills that you're building, you're not really building towards your overall business. So we really want you to look at every single thing that you're doing, and does it layer upon each other to contribute to the value of the overall business? Or is it just something that is kind of fun at the moment, but is not contributing, but actually taking time away from building the big business?
So part of the mindset that we want you to have when you're operating your blog or your website as a revenue generation tool is that everything that you do today should work for you tomorrow should make money for you or do something for you in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road. Because if we just did it today without the opportunity or to make the tweaks necessary, then we're always starting over tomorrow at the same place we were today. But if today we decide to produce an ebook, and for instance, let's just say we sold it on Amazon, then today we make $3 a copy. But tomorrow, because we sold it on Amazon, we can't tell the people who bought it that we're coming out with a new book unless we make some tweaks. So we want you to really think about how, in everything that we do, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a webinar you're going to invite people to, how is it that we use that moment in time to build something beyond that point? Because online, all we really have is momentum. All we have is an audience that is excited about us, and we need to capture their attention. We need to capture their contact information, and we need to bring them back. Because if I only bring 100 people to my site every single day, and none of them ever come back, then 2 years from now, I am on the same hamster wheel that I was on today. And that is not really a business. That is not in the business of serving the customers. That is just running on a hamster wheel. So we want to make sure that even in Rachel's book idea, that when we build it, that inside of it are the tools that we need to not only bring the audience back for book number 2, because if they really liked book number 1, don't you want book number 2? I mean, if you really liked the movie number 1, isn't a sequel always good? I know the answer is no. Sequel is always.
I was going to say that is a really poor analogy, unless there may be half a dozen movies where the sequel is as good. So I'm going to have to up my book, my second one.
Yeah, like there was no Rabbit-Proof Fence 2, I don't think. It was just 1. But the movie was good. I'd like to see number 2. So we always have to be thinking about that next thing, because the idea of selling an ebook is just to make $10. Then you're not really in business. You're just in for cash flow. But if the idea of selling an ebook for $10 is to grow an unbelievable audience who's raised their hand and loves you, then what do we do 2 weeks from now? What do we do a month from now? What do we do 3 months from now to continue to make those people even smarter, happier, stronger, whatever it is we do, and give them the opportunity to pay for that because people love the things that they pay for?
That is true, and with regards to the ebook, we work through, really we show the ebook as an example in Blogging Concentrated Sequoia. We go over it and what the call to action is, how we use each section to build upon each section, and how we're rolling the snowball. So that's one of the topics that's covered in the second half of the day for Sequoia, and it's really kind of a fun section because it helps you look at not only ebooks but other products that you create. As so oftentimes people think, well, okay, I'm just going to create an ebook, and they think of that as the end product. And we really want you to look at, if you're rolling the snowball, what is the next thing? What is the ebook a catalyst for that you're moving to, getting to people to next?
You know, we have a lot of great examples in that section. In fact, we even bring up Rachel's book and show you the elements inside of the book that are designed to help it get shared virally, and to help increase more sales and get it in the hands of more people. But if you really think about it, when you go to the movie theater, they're in the same business. The only reason that they put the coming soon signs on the wall on the theater is because they don't care that you came to the movie tonight. They're interested in you coming tomorrow night too, or in 2 weeks, or in 3 weeks, or in 6 weeks. Coming today was great, but if they don't get you to come back, they have not built much of a business. They have to continually fight for traffic. So that's kind of what we want to be thinking about when we're talking about rolling the snowball, is everything that we do has got to build on tomorrow and the next day and the next day, or a year from now, we are still on the exact same hamster wheel we're on today. So we cover that in pretty good detail, I'd say.
Yeah, we do. Actually, that's again in the Sequoia when we go over it. I would say it's probably a good 60 minutes to 90 minutes where we're kind of talking about that and going in depth, because we've worked with so many bloggers and small business owners that are really stuck on that hamster wheel mentality, and they just keep moving and moving, and they know they want to be a thought leader, or they know they have this greater vision of what they want to do, but they're not sure how to get off of it. And so we really look at how can you take all these different things that you're doing and combine them together with a strategic call to action so that you're no longer stuck running in place, but you're actually moving forward.
Now that brings us, I think, quite succinctly to the next topic, which is understanding the money, because a lot of these bloggers who are on the hamster wheel, even small businesses that are they come to ask us, how come we're not making more money online? And the first question I always have is, what are the options that people could give you more money online? How does that work out? Like, what if somebody is sleeping in their bed right now, and 2 weeks from now they will have spent $1,000 with you? How does that happen? What did they buy? What did they do? How did they get to the site? How did they find you? What were the options once they got there? Because if you're wondering how come you're not making more money, the first question you should ask is, how do I make money in the first place? Because if you don't really even understand where the money comes from, and I'm not talking about I make money from AdSense, I'm talking about how do you make money from AdSense? How does somebody find you in the first place? How do they even get to that page? Did they search? Did they find it on Facebook? I mean, what was it that actually created the money? Because that's what we need to do more of if you want to make more money. Or a lot of people find themselves saying, I guess there isn't another way for people to spend money with me. That's why I'm not making more money. You know, and that, a lot of people, is a light bulb moment.
Well, Dan, it really is, because when you said that, I can remember back to one of the first masterminds when you and I got to know each other, where you actually asked me that question, like, well, how do you make money? And I remember thinking, like, well, I don't know. I have to think about it. And now, since you know me so well, you know how strategic-minded I am and thinking, and I love to know and delve into all the different facets of how the money comes into the website and all of that, because it's fascinating. But in order to do it, you have to understand really where the money comes in and what are your options for money to come in, and not be afraid to think outside of the box with regards to opportunity.
Now, this is a brief pre-sell of the next topic, which is called infrastructure. But what if I could tell you that if you're making money on AdSense, Google's AdSense network, what if I could tell you that if you set it up right, if you set up the dashboard correctly, you could figure out exactly which page and which ad was making you the most money. And I can almost assure you that if I told you exactly which page was making you the most money, that you would add that to the thing that you tweeted out or you Facebook every single day, because that's where the income comes from. So if we know exactly where the money comes from, and it's not hard, it's just that there isn't a school for this, which is why we do Blogging Concentrated. It's not hard to know where the money comes from. You just have to set things up right. But once you do, then you're armed with an unbelievable amount of information that means that you get to control, to some degree, your own income. Because if you know that your cherry pie recipe on your site is making you $15 every time somebody clicks it, then won't you tell more people about it? Won't we come up with, like, how many occasions do people eat cherry pie? Let's add that to our calendar to make sure that we're promoting that during every particular occasion, that becomes something to do. So when we're talking about understanding the money, part of that is understanding the infrastructure involved to give you that information.
In fact, that's a good takeaway, or a good call to action from this call, because you know how I like those, is to go back and go look at your analytics and to go figure out, which are your top traffic driving posts and which posts make you money. And if you don't know that, we will really show you in depth how to go about figuring that out, because as Dan was saying, if you know that that post brings traffic or you make money from it, then that post should absolutely be highlighted in different ways. You can change images on Pinterest, you can tweet it out, you can use Google Plus if Google Plus stays around, like whatever new morphing it'll do. You can Facebook it, you can constantly be using that post to continually be updating it and driving traffic back.
Now, speaking of call to action, why don't we just throw this out there, that if you tweet us with the hashtag bloggingcon, BLOGGINGCON, I will send to you, just tell me that you want this, I will send to you the video where we show you step by step how to set up your AdSense dashboard so you can learn how to make, how to figure out which ad and which page makes you the most money. I figure
Yeah,
that's something good to walk away with.
it would be good. And if you tweet us and you get that prior to Blogging Concentrated New Zealand, then you'll have that information handy and ready, and it'll be, one step further to figure out what call to action you need to do next.
Now, one of the other ways that that businesses make money, that bloggers make money, is sponsorship. Event sponsorship. Sometimes a business will have a big shindig. Did they use the word shindig in New Zealand?
I don't know, but Rebecca will answer because she did answer my snow question, that they get snow on the South Island, Mount Cook, but not in the North very often. So I'm waiting on this other screen over here for Rebecca Carrow's answer.
Well, it's a good thing I mentioned Mount Cook then.
I know. She's going to think you're a geography whiz right now.
Yeah, I know all about Mr. Cook and his travels.
Yes.
So one of the other ways is sponsorship, and that is getting other companies involved with what you do, because a lot of the time, the audience that you serve is the audience that another company is interested in serving as well. So sponsorship is an opportunity for you to serve your audience with with the things that another company does. But in order to make that happen, in order to really be able to accept sponsors, there's quite a bit of infrastructure involved that needs to be created on your end to really make that a reality. Can you think of the things that we built recently for Blogging Concentrated?
I'm sorry, I was reading Rebecca's response that said, I'm British, I don't know about shindigs in New Zealand, so you might have to save me right at this moment.
Wait, shindigs, isn't that just means like party?
It does. Yes. Sorry, I got distracted.
Since you were reading the Q&A, in order, sometimes there are people that you might hire to actually help execute a plan where you get a sponsor, but it's not necessarily important that you do that. One of the things that we would love for you to have in terms of the infrastructure, in your business on your site, is to have what's called a sponsor deck. And that is a statement. Sometimes it's 1 page, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10. But it's a statement that indicates how the company might get involved with your business. So events have sponsor decks all the time. You can sponsor our event at the platinum level and you get a big booth, or at the gold level and you get a booth and a logo, or there's all those kinds of things. But that sponsor deck can exist on your site as well. That is, how can the business actually get involved? Now, sometimes we think that we're awesome enough that a company will just want to do business with us. But what we fail to take into consideration is that some businesses just aren't that creative, and they don't really know how to go about getting a hold of you, and they're not that aggressive. But if the opportunity is put in front of them, if they get to your site and there's a contact us button and there's a statement that says, hey, if you're interested in working with us, click here, and they get an opportunity to see that they could work with you on a 3, 6, 9 week video series, or sidebar advertising, or solo ads in your email, if those things are drawn out for them, then it makes it very easy for you to go to the next step, because it makes it very easy for them to see and understand how they can get involved. Now, another thing that we like you to have is, and I don't know if there's a word for this, Rachel, but
we
it's
should
kind
make
of like
one up because we like to make up words. A moments document.
Maybe we'll call it the moments document.
I'm writing it down because you and we like to create products, so we'll be creating how to make your own moments document step by step. And according to Dan, since it's midnight here, it'll be released at 6 a.m. our time.
Oh, of course. So a moments document, if you were to hire Rebecca Carrow at Creative Agency Secrets, and they do a great job of marketing, for all kinds of companies worldwide, then wouldn't it be nice for her to have access to a document that told some of the moments that occurred in your business that actually define your business? Like maybe how you started, or maybe there's a particular client who really enjoyed, or who benefited from something that you did. Maybe there's a moment in time where you worked and did something for charity, and there was a lot of hoopla about it, and have lots of goosebumps, but it kind of explains, who you are. But the idea that the infrastructure that you need is something that you can give someone that says, hey, this is who we are. These are the angles at which you can use to market us. These are some moments in time that other people would love to hear about. Here's a testimonial from somebody that really explains how we benefit other people. Having that kind of infrastructure built out just makes the whole process of finding a sponsor or working with a press release company or any of those things so much easier than if you just sort of go in blind.
Well, and the other thing, and this builds up, Dan, off of our rolling the snowball or the hamster wheel analogy, is if you're caught in the cycle of a hamster wheel, you're just doing things every day just to do it. Infrastructure, which we're talking about right now, it takes time. It takes deciding this morning that I know what top posts drive traffic and money, and I'm going to use that to drive traffic and continue to boost the business at this point. But I'm going to dedicate time right now to build the infrastructure. As you and I know, we've spent probably the first 3 months of 2015 working really hard on that deep infrastructure for Blogging Concentrated so that we had it, and once it's there, it's done. It's like your analogy with some things that are finite. Like, I love your analogy that you tell about the 100 marbles, knowing that you can either start picking them up now, or in 10 minutes you can start picking them up, but eventually they're going to get done. And that's the way we want you to look at infrastructure. It's going to be there, but it's a finite thing that you just have to update now and then, but you don't have to typically go back and start over.
Now, if you joined this call thinking that it would be only a half hour, then this is basically the half-hour mark. So I'm going to tell you that we're about to cover some of the infrastructure you need for products, some of the infrastructure you need for advertising, and a couple of the other things like that. We're going to talk about a little bit about scaling your business and about selling your business. So
and you know what? I'm going to add one thing though, Dan, because I just want to say that if you are on the call and you only had a half hour, we would both appreciate it, and Rebecca would too, is if you would share this with your friends around as well, because we are so appreciative of anybody that shares it, because that's just really how networking goes. And one of the things that you're going to learn, and what we believe as a website owner too, is not to be afraid to say, hey, if you love this, would you share it with somebody else?
Yes, that would be fantastic. So the link that you came to get to this is going to be it's going to be recorded. So that's the same link that you're going to use to watch the recording. So if you actually have to leave, then you have the link and you can come back and finish the recording, and you can share it with your friends. So what we were saying is, beyond sponsors, let's just say that you want to sell an ebook, just a simple product. And maybe you want to give it away. It's not that much different. You have to have some infrastructure built to operate a page on your website that actually has a buy button, or a download button, because those things just don't happen by osmosis. That has to happen. Now, if you use somebody like PayPal, now you don't even need a shopping cart. I mean, you can do this unbelievably simply. But if you use a service like PayPal and you log into PayPal, in your, I believe on the left-hand side in other services, you can click on what's called Create a Buy button. And you can just, right inside PayPal, you can say, I'm selling an ebook and it's $5 and I have an unlimited number of copies, and you can say, here is the URL where the ebook is. If you load it up to your media section of your WordPress, or if you load it up to Amazon S3 or Dropbox, whatever, you can put that right in there. And then eBay creates, or PayPal creates for you, a button. Now, this button, you just copy and paste the code, put it right on your site, use div, just use the code to make it centered on your page. And then when somebody clicks that, it takes them directly to PayPal. They pay you the money, your PayPal account, and then they're automatically taken to the ebook. Very simple. I mean, like if you have ever thought that it would be hard to sell or create a product, like that is all. You just go to PayPal, create the button, copy paste, put it on your site, and you're done. That's it. Now, the problem with that plan is that there is no rolling the snowball thought. Because if you're thinking about rolling the snowball, then you're telling yourself, I don't care that I sell the ebook right now. What I need to do is I need to make sure that I grab the contact, the email and address of the person, so I can ask them if they liked it, so they can remind them to read chapter 2, so they can tell them that I'm going to be coming out with a new book. You need to have that mentality. So what we like to do is we like to connect that PayPal button directly to our email service. We use Aweber, so that when they use the PayPal button, they actually automatically get added to our email service, and we automatically send them an email that has a link to the book, which means not only did we have to have the infrastructure of building a book, we had to have Dropbox or Amazon S3 or a media account to host the book, but we also needed an email service like Aweber, like Constant Contact. And then we needed an email, and actually we have to write the email that says, hey, thanks for buying the book, and here's the link to it. So all those little pieces of infrastructure have to be built in order for you to operate in a way that would allow people to give you money for things that they love. So it's not necessarily easy to operate as a business, but there are pieces, there's this very easy steps, and once you take them, they're pretty much done forever. You just have to make sure that you take them.
That's exactly, it goes back to your rule of the finite rule. And with regards to all the email and the follow-up, for those in Auckland, that's what we cover in the second day, and circles, is we go over that autoresponder series, like how do you go setting that up so that everybody who opens the first email wants to open the next, and then they want to open the next. It's that whole idea of persuasion in not the scary way, but the right way, so that when they read something that you write, there's that instant wanting to know more about it. So you have to set up the infrastructure, and then we tackle that whole aspect of it, but then we also tackle what it takes to continue rolling that snowball and to continue driving traffic back in that way.
Now, let's slightly segue over to the concept of scaling your business. So let's say that you use the PayPal button, and you have your email sent, the person's email address sent directly to your email service provider, and let's say that you write an email that says, thanks for buying the book, here's the link, and that you're done. You've actually completed the entire transaction, and you've started to build a database. But if we're thinking about scaling the business, then we also have to think about, how do I do this so that it takes me less time later? So I want you to think about, if I have built a database of people, a list of people who've purchased my book or who've downloaded it for free, then like every week or every day or every 2 weeks, I'm going to need to send them an email, telling them about a recent blog post or a new thing that's coming out, or giving them a tip, any of those things in order to keep in contact with them. But if I instead figured out how to write those emails ahead of time and put them into an autoresponder, then I could not only sell the ebook and grow the list, but then I could automatically have emails sent to them every week, every day, every 3 days, every 4 days, whatever increments that you want, so that your email system actually works for you, so that you can go back to doing the things that you want to do. And that means that you've built for yourself some leverage. And now, instead of sending emails out every week, you can write a new blog post. You could guest on somebody's podcast. You could write a guest post somewhere. So now we're starting to think, now I've sold a book, I made some money, I've added the list, I'm rolling the snowball, I've created some infrastructure, which means I'm creating an opportunity for me to scale the business. I mean, all of these things kind of build on top of each other. And if we don't think about them sort of ahead of time, then once again we're always on the same hamster wheel with the same 100 people.
Yeah, and the great thing about what you were talking about there, with even going back to the autoresponder, is when you've built that infrastructure, you've also, like you were saying, freed up time. Because anybody that's sold an ebook understands that oftentimes the first question that you get, or a common email, is, I can't get the download link to open up or to work. Well, when you build the infrastructure and you respond and you have your first autoresponder that goes out to everybody that purchases your ebook, have the link in it, you have therefore eliminated that need for the I can't get the download link to open up. In fact, so often, sometimes even with the Finding Joy book, I will get the email that says, oh, I can't find the download link, and then almost seconds later I'll get another one that says, you know what, never mind, I got the second email. And I really eliminated any type of work there, that extra effort that we have to put into it. So the autoresponder, that whole part of scaling, it's just freeing up that time, like Dan says, so that you can start working on things that you really love that keep moving you forward to the other places. Like maybe you do want to do public speaking or write another book, but if you're still just doing the same thing day after day, it's very, very hard to find the time to do it.
Now, what if you're monetized? Maybe what if you're a business and one of the things that you do is sell a service, like consulting, or we'll just use consulting as an example. And somebody goes to your website and you have the same buy button, right, with PayPal or with your whatever service you're using. And then after they buy, instead of being redirected to the page, the PayPal page or the ebook page, what if they got redirected to a page on your own site where you said, thanks for taking me up on the service. Now we just need to schedule a time to get together. Now, scheduling time is one of those things that actually is a real pain in the butt. And from a scaling the business perspective, if we're spending our time going back and forth with a client on what time can, Friday at 5, no, I've got something. What about Tuesday at 3? No, I've got something. What about Wednesday at 4? No, I've got, that whole process, it doesn't enable you to, what's that?
I said, you're really busy here. No, that doesn't work either.
But what if we sent them to a page that said, hey, look, I don't want this to be rude, but to make it easy, I've detailed below all the times where I'm not busy and I'd love to get together. If you just click one, then you can have that spot and we can chat, and then we don't have to go back and forth through that whole process of, how do we get together and set up this time, which means you've taken away one of those administrative tasks that seems to be sucking your time, which means you can't do the guest post, the guest podcast somewhere, or you can't go and meet the mayor or any of those other things because you're too busy doing the administrative stuff.
And let me add that it adds a level of professionalism for those of you for people that work with you at that point too. I absolutely love podcasters who have that exact time scheduling system set up. If all I have to do is say, yeah, I'm in, and then I click over and there's a calendar and I choose 3, I choose one, and the next thing I know I'm kicked out a Google alert that's a reminder that I'm going to be on this podcast at this point, and it's so efficient and so easy. Because exactly like Dan was saying, if it's a lot of back and forth, no one's got time for it. So not only are you freeing up time for yourself, but you're also presenting yourself as a business to those that you work with.
Now, I'm going to throw out another call to action opportunity. That is, we did an interview with the folks from lifeofdad.com. Life of Dad is a contributor site where they actually have people write on their site blog posts for them. And these people love the site so much, they actually tell their friends and family that they have a blog. And they'll say, like, hey, I've got a blog. I blog over at lifeofdad.com/David. That's my blog. And if you go there, you can see all of David's guest posts. So that particular type of scaling means that the Life of Dad guys don't have to spend their time writing content all the time. They've built a community who writes the content for them and creates, all the fervor and all the fun about, being a dad. So if you're interested, we can send you that interview. If you want to tweet us the same thing with the hashtag bloggingcon, I'll find it and I will send you back a link to that interview, because I think they explain how to build a contributor site better than we could. We'd just be regurgitating what they said.
Which was awesome what they said. I totally agree.
So that brings us, since we're close to the top, we're not too bad, are we? What time is it on your end?
Well, since your clock is always wrong, my clock says 12:44 a.m. And so just for everybody in New Zealand, I thought I would just keep my window open so you could really, really see that it is midnight or 1 a.m. here, pitch black. So I just thought it added a little charm.
One of the other things I like about scaling the business is outsourcing. No.
Yes, I love outsourcing. I think sometimes, especially, it's a little bit of a taboo word, like, outsourcing, but I absolutely love outsourcing because it makes you more efficient.
Well, I'll say the hardest thing to do about outsourcing for most people, bloggers and companies alike, is how do we outsource? If we're not making money, how do we spend money to give somebody the work, but we're not yet making money. Like how does that really work? And the easiest way for that to work is if we go back to number 3, which was understanding where the money comes from. If we understand that we make more money when more people get to our cherry pie page, then it seems to me that we could outsource somebody to help us promote and drive traffic to the cherry pie page while we do the things that we need to do that we can't do because we're driving traffic. Or vice versa. We outsource administrative stuff, and while we're doing that, while they're doing the administrative stuff, we work on promoting our cherry pie page to make the money that there is going to be to pay that person. Now, that would kind of be a hamster wheel in itself because we'd never really get anything done. We'd make more money, but then we'd always be giving it to the person who was doing our administrative stuff that we could have done well, that never really goes away. But the idea is, if you can do that and it works, if you can actually create revenue while someone is doing something for you, then it's much easier for you to tackle the concept of, I understand now how I can outsource. We're going to spend more money, we're going to spend more time doing this activity, which will pay for the time that they're doing that activity. And then you have some synergy. Now, the only problem you have in the end is cash flow. Is how do I pay them now if the money doesn't come a month from now? And that's where investors usually come into play. Friends, family, we invest and help bloggers. If you only need $100 for a month and you can pay them right back with the proceeds of what you're going to do, then it's not really a cash problem. It's a cash flow problem. We just have to have a plan in place. So knowing where the money comes from is kind of half the battle of outsourcing.
Are you looking for me to segue to thinking about selling, or did you have more with outsourcing?
I didn't know.
I know.
We just hired a team, an administrative team.
Yes. Oh, which both Dan and I. So let me just tell a little bit of a story with it. Is a lot of the administrative work. We both found out that we were spending a lot of time with it. Like I would message Dan in the morning, and it was administrative, and he would talk to me, and it was administrative. And then one day we realized maybe we should outsource this. And so when we were driving to Philadelphia, we finalized the outsourcing of it. And I think we both kind of did a happy dance in the car and let out some audible sighs of release because we realized that in order to continue to progress the business, we had to outsource that.
Now,
you were very happy, Dan.
I was. Let's go back to infrastructure. In order to outsource things, it would be nice if they understood what they were supposed to do. So that means that you have to kind of think about building some infrastructure. So our team is actually going to help us build the infrastructure. That's part of the outsourcing. They're going to help us build, how do we write a blog post? What is it that we put in it? Where does the picture go? How big is it? What side does it go on? When a product is sold, double check that the name goes into the right event, and then make sure that the email goes out and here's the series of emails that gets written for each new product. All of that infrastructure kind of has to be built, and some of that costs money. But if you kind of think about it, if you were to start a Subway franchise, which is the largest restaurant company in the world, if you were to start a Subway franchise, you would have to get a loan for $386,000 US just to be able to sell your first sandwich. And for the most part, as small business owners, we're trying to sell an ebook for $10 by not spending anything. So if we can get past the idea that we do actually have to spend a couple of dollars to build something, because we are in fact a business just like Subway and McDonald's, then maybe we could overcome that tiny little hurdle and realize, all right, I just need a little bit of investment money. I need a little seed money to really build this out so that it can really work for me in the end. Because once that infrastructure is built, if you don't like the person you outsource to, you could just give it to somebody else and say, hey, here's the plan. Can you follow these 20 steps every Tuesday and get all of this stuff done for me? And then voila, now you've actually built some leverage, and you can get to the point where you're scaling your business, and then maybe we could start thinking about selling.
That was an excellent segue because I was thinking like, oh, should I talk about in our BC Prime membership that we have an entire series about outsourcing, but even a webinar that was specifically designed to talk about how to create your own operations manual, so that framework. But you just moved it right into selling. So I'm going to let you go with selling.
So no matter what we do, an online business doesn't really have a way to retire. There's no end. Like there isn't a site on the planet where you go to it and it says, hey, we retired. Click the PayPal button every day, every month for the next 20 years to help pay for our retirement fund.
I kind of want to just make a website now because you give that example all the time. Just like, hey, I'm retired. Go ahead and click the website button. Go on and send it to PayPal.
That'd be funny. Maybe we'd get some money that way.
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking I'll just add it to the list of things to do. We have the moments document and now the retiring website.
So if there's no way to retire and we're about to embark upon a business, then how does it end? How do we leave? What if we get burnt out? How do we go on vacation for a month and the business not die? Like, how does that happen? So if you don't think about that on the front end, then one of the things you end up doing is making sure that your Instagram account is the same as your business Instagram account. And then when someone goes to buy it, you're a little bit hesitant because you don't really want to give up your Instagram account, and that kind of defeats the purpose of selling it in the first place. So what if we think about that ahead of time? We think about what would a fantastic package be, and what if my only goal in this whole thing was to build an unbelievable package that I could sell to someone else or hand down to a family member. If I thought that way, then how do I build it so that if I give it away or if I sell it, that I still have all the stuff that I love. I don't take a part of me. I only sell the business, and I could easily package it, and I wouldn't bother me if somebody got into the numbers. They wouldn't see personal stuff. How do we think about that on the front end? Because if we don't have the exit strategy on the back end, then it just gets all kind of messy.
Well, that's another call to action, either the third or fourth one, is we'd like to challenge you to think, like, in 10 years from now, where do I see this business going? And sometimes we don't take that moment to step back and really think about it. So if 10 years, I want to hear, what about in 5 years? What about in 2 years? What about in 6 months? Because when you can have those, it doesn't have to be super, super concrete, but an idea of where you're going, then your movement, even though it's zigzagging, is still moving you towards that goal. So that means that everything that you're rolling upon each other still builds together. But without it, you could just be doing the same thing in 6 months, and in 12 months, and in 18 months, and then all of a sudden you just get tired because you can only run in place for so long. And so that's the whole plan. What is your exit plan? Are you planning on writing your website for another 10 years? And if so, that's awesome, and how are you going to maintain it? Or are you thinking, like Dan says, at some point I want to be able to sell it, or I want to do this with it? Because then it really helps structure what you're doing today.
So let's segue to the first session of Blogging Concentrated Sequoia Auckland by saying, and our first section is called Online Business Risk.
Yes.
So let's think about this concept. Let's pretend like it was 10 years ago. Right now, and we're building a business, and we're getting a whole lot of traffic from MySpace, and we're really rocking it, and we're thinking, man, if I can just build this out, then I will really have an unbelievable community, and I'll be able to sell that in the end. Now, let's fast forward to today, and here we are with 50,000 fans on MySpace. What do we have in the end? Like, what are we going to sell? I don't know. So what I want you to think about in terms of where does this go is, how is it structured? Where does the traffic come from? How likely is it that that traffic will be a good source 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now? And how do I develop a plan that always challenges me to find new traffic, new people, new sources, new community areas? Because at some point in time, Facebook and Twitter go away, as did MySpace and AOL. And then, do we have a robust business that we can sell, or do we have a business where we just put a lot of trust in a lot of other people that didn't pan out? So that would be the segue to the first part of Blogging Country, Sequoia, which is May 1st in Auckland.
Yes, it is, which is not very far now, because now I'm starting to get alerts from like the airline saying your trip is around the corner. So it seems like it was just yesterday where we booked the tickets, and now, they were 3 months ago, and now it's just within less than 2 weeks.
So I will give a short little shout out to Ricky Shetty, because on our way to New Zealand, we're going to be speaking at the Blog Mastery Conference in Vancouver, Canada. In fact, it is actually on the way. It's like a little stopover.
A little like let's go north and west on the way, and then down to LA. So yes.
So
I like your definition of on the way.
I mean, it's on the same flight. Like we're leaving here, we're going to Vancouver, we're going to see my brother in Los Angeles, then we're going to hang out.
What about my daughter in Seattle? I'm super excited the way it worked out. I get to see her. She's a freshman at college there, so we get to see her on Monday.
So we're very much looking forward to getting there and doing some great things while we're in New Zealand. I hope that was a good primer to, blogging as a business and really thinking, how do I make this a long-term endeavor?
Yeah, and like we said in the halfway point of the 30-minute webinar that we made, we just decided we're going to make an hour webinar. So this is just like, we just wanted to give you this so that you understood like what kind of like a little taste of what Blogging Concentrated is all about. We go into so much more in depth, and we, again, would absolutely be super blessed if you would share this, tag some friends. We've got the link and all of that, because that really does help us when we get there.
So until, is it next weekend, next Monday night, we're doing our last teaser?
Yes, that will be the last teaser again. So now we have set the precedent that the 30-minute teasers are 60-minute teasers.
Excellent.
Yes.
So that's next. Well, for us, it's like Sunday night.
At midnight?
For you, it's Monday at 5. So Sunday night at midnight, Monday at 5, we will be doing one more. I think we're doing search engine optimization next week.
Yeah, so I'm going to say even with that, we would love to get the word out about that teaser. So we can send the link. You could even tag us at BloggingCon for that, and we'll send you the Google Hangout link for that too. I would love to see that be a super well-attended hangout.
Yeah, tag a friend, and we'll reply. And let us know if you're interested in the AdSense video or the Life of Dad video, and we'll send those over to you. Otherwise, we appreciate you hanging out with us in the middle of the night in the United States. And look forward to next week. Thanks to Bloggers Club and to Creative Agency Secrets for helping bring us there. And we look forward to seeing everyone shortly.
Are you looking?